Morning, everybody. I'm a bit of a wanderer, a bit of a sitter, so you might have to keep moving to keep your eyes on me. We've put together some slides which will keep me on track and kind of cover the subject I'm going to be talking about. Basically, I'm talking about closing the deal. So I'm a designer. I have a design business, and I've been in this business now for 10 years. When I started in the business, I thought that that's what I was. I was going to be a designer, and people were going to come to me for great designs. And I realised pretty quickly that I wasn't a designer necessarily. The vehicle was designed, but I was actually a business person, and my whole life was going to be about closing the deal. So that's what I'm going to specifically talk about today. So what are we? We're designers. How do we do it? I have got an incredible team of designers. Some of them are here, and we have a great infrastructure behind us. Why? Well, we exist to bring to life other people's whys. So we create amazing spaces, or we create successful businesses through design solutions. So that's the relevance of the what, how, and the why will become obvious later. One of the things that I specifically look to do is understand all of the moving parts in creating a deal. It's no longer a one-on-one transaction. Well, it probably never was a one-on-one transaction. We're not selling a product, we're selling a service. So there's all these kind of bits in the background that I literally live and breathe to find out what all those parts are. So this literally gets me up in the morning. It excites me. There's nothing better than winning a deal. There's nothing better knowing than you have brought together all of those parts to create a successful solution to bring together the deal. So who do you close the deal with? Crikey, well, the deal starts long before they even arrive on your doorstep, in front of you, or even talking to you. It's your website, it's your social media, it's someone talking about you. There are so many moving parts in terms of closing the deal. Once you actually get in front of them, how are you dressed? How are you going to interact with them? Who are you presenting in front of them? What are your staff being like? When they come into your office, what does it look like? Some of my staff will laugh because one of my biggest bugbears is what does the place look like? There is literally so many aspects of it, and then if you actually get a chance of putting a fee proposal together and they sign it off, as what is the process like, how are they going to enjoy the design process, the fit out process, the stress, what about afterwards? We've had a couple of instances lately where we've worked on a project with a client for 6 months, and at the end of it they're like, well, where are you? I feel like I've just divorced my designer. Here you are and you're off onto another job. So this is one of the things that we're going to focus on is how do we cope with the divorce of a client when you've finished and moved on to the next project. For us being in the design industry, obviously we have other things like council, everybody's best friend, everybody knows about council. So you have also all these government bodies that we need to deal with and laws and legislations as well. So that's always an interesting thing. So our moving parts, what are your moving parts? If you actually start to address everything that's involved in the deal is not just the signing of the client, what are the bits before, what are the bits during, and what are the bits after? These are one of the most important things to understand. And I literally love understanding all these parts, even in a small office. You'll go and you'll meet the CEO, you might meet the finance manager. The CEO often has a wife somewhere in the background, and she influences the deal. You may never get in front of her, but she'll influence the deal. So we literally try to identify all those possible people, and if it's not the wife, it might be the PA. So obviously one of the biggest things is to get everybody 100% on board. You have to build the team around you that can create that. So I call them my dream team. My dream team are my trusted advisors in the office, but my dream team is also my staff. I could not do any of this without them. The other thing I live and breathe for is to make their business or their career successful. If they have a successful career, the outcome is that I have a successful business and a successful career. So my whole life is about upskilling them, moving them through different parts of the business, teaching them other things, teaching them new things. If they want to go into the market and compete with me, perfect, because there's plenty of business for everybody. And I understand my why and understand why I'm in business. So my team is literally one of the most important things to me. But then the other thing, interestingly, in our industry, is it's often a them and us situation. There's the designer and the client, and then you've got the construction and the suppliers. And I say to my team often, you've got to have the best relationship with your construction crew, because they're the ones that if you make a little bit of a mistake, they're the ones that'll cover it up, they'll fix it, they're your best friends. So we run a completely flat structure. This is not internally, this is with our business, our clients, our contractors and our suppliers. There's no such thing as a pecking order, and there's no one that's any more important than the other. If we don't have a good relationship with our contractor, our client loses. So we run a completely flat structure on that perspective. I think it's also very important to understand that everybody plays a specific part in the process, and what is their part, what can they bring to it, and how can they drive that process. I'm going to use a pretty good example. So Greg's here. Greg was our client when we won the Spark pitch. The Spark fit out is a really good example for us of how many players there were involved. In this particular example, we were presented with all the players. I think when we actually did our pitch, there might have been about 16 people in the room. I did kind of freak out a little bit, but I think I managed to hold it inside. So all the stakeholders were presented to us, which was fantastic, because you knew the ear to eyeball, every single one of them, figure out who the decision makers were and figure out what was the main thing that you needed to talk to bring them on board. But that was the interesting thing about the client stakeholders. With a big behemoth like Spark, who have got as many stores as Spark have got around the country, one of the things that they wanted to create was a fantastic store environment. But of course, with any retail store, the underlying why is you want to drive more sales, you want to drive more people. So we understood what the purpose of the retail store and the retail environment was for this particular retailer. So in understanding that, we were able to create a design and fit out around what we were trying to sell, which is basically service and products. So in behind that 12 stakeholders that we saw, there was almost 50 moving parts. We would have had a team of about 4 or 5 internally that were doing research, international research, customer behaviour research, looking at their stores. How did we test and measure from start to finish? When you produce a seemingly smallish space, it's only 120, but ranges between 120 to 250 square metres, but this is an incredibly important part of a really massive business's revenue stream. So how do we create a successful environment? So this is a really good example of the amount of people it takes to close the deal. And closing the deal for us was not just winning the pitch, we then had to implement it and make sure it was successful. And it is successful, and it looks great, and even better, it feels amazing. And the best thing about that store, being a designer, is you go in there and you want to touch the product. You don't go and go, wow, this looks like an amazing fit out. What we create is a fantastic backdrop for what you're trying to sell, which is the product. You're not going to say anything, are you, Greg?
Lizzie, I have a question just with regards to that flat structure that you mentioned. How do you achieve that when you're dealing with so many different contractors, and especially we were talking a little bit earlier in a male-dominated industry with all the different tradies and stuff like that? How do you actually achieve that?
Well, one of the things I was saying about that, particularly being in such a male-dominated industry, the design aspect is not male-dominated, but certainly all the people that we deal with, and often a lot of the companies that we deal with, a lot of the men that lead there are a lot of men that lead companies. Knowledge is power, and one of the things I talk to the team about is you've got to know everything. So if you're going to go onto a building site, you need to know about air conditioning, you need to know about fire services, you need to know about moisture testing and concrete floors before you put carpet on. You need to be able to blow their socks off in terms of the knowledge, and immediately gender becomes it just doesn't exist. So that is how we deal with that in that kind of environment. And same thing even when you come to a client's office. I've been in business now for 10 years, but when I started out in business, I was 28, maybe 29. I was young, so I was presenting myself in front of people that were early 50s, mid 50s, and the only way I could win these jobs was blow their socks off with my knowledge. So that became the most empowering thing, and that is what I teach my team, and constantly trying to give them more information about things that they may think are menial, like spandrels and mullions, but teaching them that knowledge is power. Yeah. So this is one of the most significant things that we've found in terms of the deal. I told you before that our what was we're designers. Our how is through an incredible design team, and our why is that we exist to bring to life other people's whys. Most of the time when we go in and see another firm and talk about what they're wanting to create for their space, all those sorts of things, they'll tell us what it is that they do, how many teams of people they've got, what they need to kind of, they want to have a breakout space and a fantastic kitchen, all those sorts of things. That's their what. Well, how is obviously important. Well, we're going to get a construction team in, we're going to do those sorts of things. So the how is important. But the way we win the deal and the way you close the deal is understanding their why. Everybody's got a why. I've never had a client yet that said to me, I've got $500,000, I just want to spend it. No one says that. There's a why. They either want to make more in an office, they want a more functional space to have better productivity, less staff churn, they want people to be productive and happy. In a retail space, let's be honest, they want to sell more product. In hospitality, they want you to sit for a long time, drink lots and eat lots. So everybody's got a why. And our industry, those are our whys, but everybody's got a why. And what ends up happening is if we understand the why and we address the how in terms of the construction team and those basic things, the what really becomes irrelevant. So the design, we're now not competing on just who produces the best design. We're actually creating a solution based on we've addressed their why. So we're an automatic yes, because we've ticked the boxes which create or make them a more successful business. So, because if we literally went out every day pitching on us being a design firm against the other big behemoth design firms, I mean, it's just kind of, well, we're just showing people pretty pictures and I might like that one more than that one. It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant that who's better than the other design company, because it makes no sense. If we understand the why, we've automatically won. And it doesn't really matter what we put on paper in terms of what the design looks like, because we develop that at a later stage with the client. So this is simply the whole thing that underpins for me what closing the deal involves.
Do you find that when you start with the why process that sometimes what the client thought their why was not necessarily what it actually is?
Yeah, and look, the why is always about money. And I don't cut straight to that because often people don't actually want to tell you what their budgets are. That's often a big difficulty in our industry. But the why always comes back to money. And it's not necessarily about what they want to spend, but it's what they want to achieve out of the fit out. So if it's an office, they may have had a lot of staff churn and they're sick of spending so much money on recruitment, or maybe their industry is short of designers or engineers. So they want people to stay and to be happy. Or they want to increase their revenue by creating a space that makes people 25% more productive. So the why, and when you break those things down, they have an impact on the bottom line. So it all comes back to money. So when we understand the why, So I'm going to show you just a couple of case studies. So Huckle Green is a client of ours, and Huckle Green, he's a very good example of how relationships are so incredibly important in every business. So I met Richard from Huckle Green when he was at Borders, and then he took me to Whitcoulls, and then he took me to House of Travel, and now he's taken me to Huckle Green. And I'll just tell a quick story about when I was first in business, we started only doing office design, and then the recession hit, and the bottom fell out of the office design market. Everybody was just staying still, they were doing nothing, just literally holding tight. So we had, based on a really good pitch that we'd done, we created a great connection with someone. We didn't win the pitch, but we created a great connection. She actually got us in to pitch to do the design work for Whitcoulls. So in going in and doing the design work for Whitcoulls, never done retail before, ever. Fake it till you make it. And Whitcoulls are probably watching, I'm sorry, but we did it. So fake it till you make it. We won the pitch, and they won it because we believed in it. And what I knew was that all of the stakeholders that I had behind me, I had the infrastructure and the systems and the people behind me, that we were going to make it work. So Whitcoulls, they were our saving grace. In the recession, we actually grew 200% in the first year and somewhere close to 200 the next year. Love a recession because you just find really great opportunities. So we grew through the recession based on diversifying into retail. And then I learned, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because then Whitcoulls went into voluntary administration in 2011, and we literally nearly was the first time I was staring down the barrel of losing the business. We were only 2 people and we were owed over $100,000, which was equivalent to at least a staff and a half for a year. But that was an incredible, interesting lesson for me, because that's where I say relationships are king. I got on the phone to every single one of our suppliers, said, this is our situation, we want to trade through, we want to honour all the debt that we have. Some of them extended us payment terms for up to a year, and we just sort of drip-fed them. And that's where I go back to relationships. Relationships are king, and that is a perfect example of how I met Huckle Green. Just in terms of Whitcoulls, whilst we nearly lost that entire business, or nearly lost my entire business, once they were bought by Farmers Group, such honourable people came out to all of us and said, we want you to have an opportunity to earn your money back again, so we'd like to take you on board as the designers. And we've now worked with them again since 2011. And whilst we won't have earned the money we lost, we definitely still have a great working relationship with them. So that's a great story. So Huckle Green, their why for me was so in line with our values. They want to make organic food accessible for everybody. So our why, being creating a successful business solution for them through design, was how do we make organic accessible? Well, you make it look good for the middle market. I've gone into organic stores and everything's in sacks and we're all wearing bare feet, and I just feel like I'm in the wrong part of town. So you'll find them in normal kind of suburbs, and you'll walk in there and you go, okay, well, it's nice, it's got timber, and it's not overly flashy, which means that you don't think it's super expensive, but it just kind of feels like a comfortable environment, just like going to your corner store that maybe looks slightly more appealing. So we understood their why, they understood our why, and we ended up creating an amazing design solution. We made no changes to this design because we just kind of understood what they were wanting to create. Google. What an incredible client. I never once met Google through the entire process. So it sounds like a really cool thing to do, but it was... So I blogged about Google for years. I'd followed them. I found them a really interesting company. I mean, they're a technology company, didn't care so much about that, but I was really interested in the fit-outs they were creating around the world. One of the fit-outs they've got somewhere in Europe, they've got beehives as meeting rooms. Somewhere else, they've got crazy kind of boats and stuff hanging on the wall you go and sit in as a breakout space. So I knew that they created crazy spaces. So, I mean, as a designer, that appealed to me immediately. But the other thing that I knew was that everywhere they went, every location that they went, they wanted a local feel. They wanted a local feel to the environment, and they wanted it to be Googleized. And when they say Googleized, it needs to be in the Google colours, which is blue, yellow, red and green. So when we were contacted to do a pitch for the space, well, we went, well, immediately you've got the Kiwi batch, right? So New Zealand's all about the beach. So we created all of their meeting rooms to look like the Kiwi batch. And the inside has got Nana's carpet, it's got crazy stuff on the wall, it's got fishing rods in a corner, it's called the Fishing Lodge, because obviously fishing for technology computer, if you get that. So it was all, it didn't look like a technology company at all. In fact, it kind of looked like a slightly more glamorous teenage boy's bedroom. So I knew, based on the research that I had done and understanding their why and what they were trying to create for their staff and their environment, we won that pitch. We didn't make any changes to the design. The Google staff didn't even know we were doing it. We created it while they were 6 doors down the hallway, and then they got presented this space, which was incredible to watch. So we understood their why, and you'd automatically think, oh, technology company, let's go and put a whole lot of technology in there, a whole lot of cool stuff, interactive stuff. That's not what they wanted to create for their working environment. Just because of their what doesn't mean that that's their why, or their why for their staff. And this is not really an environment that they bring a hell of a lot of people to, so it was more about what are they creating for their working environment. Wow, what happens when it doesn't go your way? Funnily enough, I like it sometimes when it doesn't go our way, because I think that those are the best lessons, and everything can't be a success, but I actually think every failure is a success as well. And I was saying before to Nikki that in actual fact, when we have a bit of a failure in the office, I'm the first person that wants to broadcast, guess what happened, such and such did this, because I want to go, well, this is how we could have done it differently. And if they make a $1,000 mistake, thank God it's only a $1,000 mistake, because it could have been a whole lot worse, especially in the construction industry, is how can every single one of us learn from it? And that $1,000 mistake, 24 other people are going to benefit from it. So I do enjoy the odd failure. And I think one of my most significant failures that I remember in terms of, relationships are king, perfect, got such a rock solid relationship with this client, is one of the things that I didn't do in the process of an office pitch, is I didn't put my best foot forward. I thought that our relationship was going to trump me putting forward my best foot. But on the flip side, the client said, well, she's just being lazy. Yeah, you probably will win based on the relationship, but you've got to bring to the table your best game, because they're chasing you hard. So we lost that job, and it was the biggest kick in the pants, but it was one of the best learnings that I remember as well. That happened about 5 years ago. I hated every minute of it. When the wires bang on. So most of you will know these companies. I think My Food Bag is probably one of the most significant ones for us, because we have built 4 or 5 fit-outs for them. They kind of squeeze into one, and then they go and squeeze into another, and then they go and squeeze into another, and they tack things on. But what an amazing success story. And their space resonates it as well. They're a little bit like Google in the fact they create this amazing work environment. The industry has changed so much. I remember going into offices 10 years ago, and it was about having all the senior people around the outside of the office, and you put all the kind of the core of the business, I guess you could say the engine or the workers in the middle, and that's so changed now. It's like you even put the CEO on the middle, and you put all the people on the outside, because you know that they're actually the core engine of the business, and they're also the thing that dictates the culture as well, because they dictate the underlying culture of a business as well. So My Food Bag is a classic example of a success there. And I love Deadly Ponies. I'm obsessed with them. I've got many of their bags. So shut up and listen. Oh God, so many people say this, right? Like, one of the things that you should do is, listen twice with your ears, speak once, something like that. This is hugely significant with our team internally. I don't know a company that has as many one-to-ones as we have. Mel, my GM, she literally is meeting with the team probably every other week. I always decline the meeting requests, way too many of them. But meeting with the team and understanding what drives their internal culture, they influence so much of the external deal, to understand whether they're happy and they're satisfied and they're getting what they want and they're getting the staff development and all that kind of stuff is so important. And we all understand the importance of listening to clients, but if you listen too much to clients and not ask the right questions, you'll get too much of that what. And it really is trying to ask them the questions to try and really get to what their why is. And I always think that if you stop talking, they'll fill the gap, because that awkward silence, someone wants to talk. So you just wait till someone talks, and they'll keep talking. And if you get them onto the why subject, you'll get so much good stuff. And they'll just keep going and going and going about what they want, which is important. So we also do the same thing with our contractors. We're also constantly asking them, what's the interaction with our business? Are you enjoying the interaction? Are you getting the information you need? What are our drawings like? Can you understand them? The better the information transference between the companies that we use, our contractors and our suppliers, means that our client, who's the one that's paying the bill in the forefront, gets the best experience. So understanding, and we've got a supplier or two here, understanding that we can constantly get the right information transferring between the two of us is an important part of our deal process. And it takes real discipline to slow down. And I find it real hard, because you can tell I talk 100 miles an hour. I find it really hard to slow down and listen, but it's one of the best things that I can teach, especially to my team. The other thing I think is understanding, this is quite important for the industry, and it's understanding how to be nimble in the industry. When we first, as I said, started in business, we started as an office design company. And then when the recession changed, we moved into retail. We loved retail. And then at one point I was like, well, this is really interesting. So we managed to do retail. What can we do next? So we were, without having to add any more staff, without having to necessarily change our skill set, what else can we do? Ended up having a great chat with a guy that owned a bar. I said, give us a shot. So we moved into hospo. Never done hospo before. I thought, well, again, fake it till you make it. Ask a few people a few questions, make a few balls up on the way. We might lose a little bit of money here and there, but if it's only time, it's only time. So we segued into hospitality. Once we segued into hospitality, we were like, well, sure, why don't we give retirement villages a bit of a go? We're still just designing. It's just like being in your home, surely. How different can it be? It's just a slightly different environment. So we moved into aged care, and then we thought, well, why don't we try and move into hotel? So we've just recently won three relatively large contracts in the hotel industry. So in terms of being nimble, what we did is we looked at what the industry wanted. I don't know how many, the business I have today is not the business I had 5 years ago. It's not even the business I had 2 years ago. One from a staff perspective or even how we run things. So my entire business has been created based on what the market wants. So that's what I say about being agile and being nimble. You create the business that the market wants, and then you'll continue to be successful. But then also what we were trying to do was even out all the ebbs and flows, because industries have highs and lows. When the office industry is booming, offices think that we should work at Christmas time because that's when they're all on holiday. So they want us in there at Christmas. Retail has a blackout period November to February. So office is booming, retail is quiet. So how do we look in our existing industry without changing our skill set, without changing our team to even out those ebbs and flows? So that's why our business has moved and changed. And right now, probably our current problem is we've got 3 really, really large projects coming up. What does it look like for our business? Does that mean we're going from 25 to 40 in 3 months? I have no idea. So that is the exciting part of the deal process that I'm trying to work out. How do we make this client have this seamless deal from beginning to end without feeling any waves whatsoever? So this is probably one of my most exciting challenges in terms of this large deal and how to pull that together.
Lizzie, I have a question. You've just said that you have just won this new contract with a hotel. How do you win a client, which is obviously a very big client, going into a hotel when you've never done a hotel and you can convince them that that you can do this job? Yes, you've got the track record for hospo and for retail, but you've got nothing to prove the hotel. For a lot of the audience here, they're going, I can do this, but I've never done that before. How can you convince the client that?
Well, luckily we have got members of the team that have done hotel, so that makes whilst our business hasn't done hotel, there are members of the team that have done it. And then when you pull together a hotel, if you break it into parts, you've got a restaurant, you've got a reception, you've got rooms. We do all those things. It's just under a different umbrella. So all the skill sets already exist. It's just about bringing it into the same kind of same bubble, basically. Yeah. So yeah, shut up and listen.
You said 25 to 40. What did you mean by 25 to 40?
Staff.
Oh, staff.
Yeah. And what does that mean? I've got one spare desk in my office, so unless I create shifts, we're not thinking about that. So it's one of those things that the presentation to the client, the seamlessness and how that all rolls out is so important. But also the impact on the team. If I introduce 15 new people, what's that going to do to the culture? So you think about all those moving parts in the whole equation. This is one I go on about all the time, is about surrounding yourself with the right people who believe in the why. And the team that work for you don't necessarily understand the why initially, but as long as when we interview them, you kind of feel that they can understand the why and can resonate with it, that's usually why we employ people. I believe I can teach them probably anything, but instinct based on who they are, their attitude, how they're going to integrate with the team, the culture is why we select the staff or the team that we have. And the surrounding, that again, it goes all the way out to our contractors, our suppliers, our furniture suppliers, everything. We've broken relationships with many contractors and many suppliers because we just don't align with each other's why. I think it's just better just to move those people on because it's always going to be a fractured relationship. And for me personally, that's around having all those good external advisors, having all those people you can bounce ideas off. If you're having a moment of crisis, who's that person that you can ring that'll pull you into line? Yeah, so Spaceworks says thanks.